Greetings, my dear viewer. This is a channel about marital infidelity and about the consequences if one spouse starts to cheat on the other. If you, as well as I do, support true family values and condemn cheating, then subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Let's get started. I've always been a man who dictates his own fate. Hesitation has no place in my mind, and self-pity is a weakness I refuse to indulge. No one crosses me without facing the consequences. At 38, I've constructed my success with sheer determination, physically, financially, and mentally. The moment I step into a room, respect follows. I push myself beyond limits, fight for what's mine, and safeguard what I love with unwavering resolve. So when I married Delilah, I made a vow. She would never know fear or uncertainty under my watch. I gave her security, devotion, and passion. She never wanted for anything unless by choice. For years, I believed she was fulfilled, that our bond was unshakable. Then she came back from her business trip. It wasn't just the shift in her demeanor that put me on edge. It was her scent. A woman might dismiss such a detail, but after a decade beside her, I knew her fragrance like my own breath. And the one lingering on her clothes? It wasn't mine. Worse, it wasn't just another man's cologne. It was something far more damning. I didn't react. Not yet. A man in control never moves without certainty. I played my role, calm and composed, pulling her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead, and casually inquiring about her trip. She gave me a well-rehearsed tale, long meetings, late-night networking, the usual script. Her smile was stretched too wide, her words clipped and rushed. A liar through and through. When she excused herself for a shower, I retrieved the shirt she'd discarded in the hamper. That's when I saw it. Stains, dried, and unmistakable. My stomach clenched, my jaw tightened, my pulse pounded like a war drum. There was no question about what I was looking at. My first instinct was to storm into the bathroom, rip back the curtain, and demand the truth. But I didn't. I wouldn't give her the chance to spin a sob story, to twist the facts into something that made her the victim. Instead, I did what any man of calculation would. I preserved the evidence. The next morning, I delivered the shirt to a private lab. No explanations, no unnecessary details, just an envelope stuffed with cash and a quiet expectation of discretion. The technician nodded, asking no questions. The results would take 3 days. 3 excruciating days. Meanwhile, Delilah continued as if nothing had changed. She cooked, she laughed, she nestled beside me at night as though she wasn't desecrating our bed. And I played along. I held her, kissed her, whispered tender deceptions while planning my next move. Then the call came. The results only confirmed what I already knew. Semen, not mine. But that wasn't the worst part. The true horror came next. The sample tested positive for a rare, incurable, fatal disease. My hands curled into fists so tight my knuckles turned white. A storm of rage built inside me, suffocating, blinding. I wanted to destroy everything in my path. But then, it hit me. She had no idea. She was carrying her own death sentence, completely unaware. I was ready to confront her, ready to lay the truth at her feet. But first, I made one last move. I unlocked her phone. What I found shifted everything. It wasn't just messages. There were videos. Her and him. No, not just one. Several men. Hotel rooms. Cars, places I never would have suspected. She had dug her own grave. Now it was my turn to make sure she lay in it. I met Delilah when I was 25, still clawing my way up. Back then, I was hungry. Hungry for power, for control, for a life where no one dictated my worth. I came from nothing, learned early that the world only rewards those ruthless enough to take what they want. I fought for every inch, in business, in strength, in survival. I never begged, never pleaded. I seized what I desired and worked twice as hard to keep it. And I desired Delilah. She wasn't like the rest. She was sharp, ambitious, a challenge. She made me chase her, and I respected that. I believed I'd found someone who understood me, someone incapable of betrayal. For years, I built a future with her. I gave her everything. When our son, Nolan, was born, I swore he would never know struggle, never know hunger, never fear whether the lights would stay on. 2 years later, our daughter Flora arrived. The moment I saw her, I was undone. She had her mother's eyes, but I used to think she had my spirit, strong, fearless, untouchable. I worked endlessly to provide for them. I built my empire, forged deals with men who didn't back down, eliminated those foolish enough to stand in my way. I had it all, a family, an empire, a home men would kill for, and she threw it all away. The night I watched those videos, I couldn't stay still. I had never known rage like that, betrayal so absolute it made my hands tremble. I walked into our bedroom, stood over her as she slept, and stared down at the woman who had shattered everything I had built. She looked serene, deceptively so, as if she hadn't spent her nights wrapped in the arms of other men. Her body stirred slightly, eyelids fluttering open, and her gaze met mine through the haze of sleep. "Baby," she whispered. My fingers curled into fists. Baby. The word tasted like poison in my mouth, as if I wasn't about to dismantle her world piece by piece. "I couldn't sleep," I said, voice low, carefully measured. She reached out, but I stepped back before she could touch me. If she laid a hand on me now, I might snap. I needed distance, to think, to breathe, to stop myself from doing something I couldn't take back. But fate, as cruel as ever, had other plans. At that moment, my son, Nolan, shuffled down the stairs, his small frame swallowed by his oversized pajamas, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. "Dad?" he murmured through a yawn. "Why are you up?" A tight knot formed in my chest. I looked at him. This child, my son, the boy I had given everything for. The reason I worked myself to the bone, sacrificing time, energy, and pieces of myself to give him the life he deserved. And yet, the woman I had vowed to build that life with had been out there tearing it apart. She had been playing with fire, dancing on the edge of danger, fully aware that she might bring devastation home with her. And what if she already had? What if her recklessness had put us all at risk? I had spent years protecting them, and in return, she had made me a fool. The bile rose in my throat, rage simmering just beneath the surface, but I swallowed it down and forced a hollow smile. "Just thinking, buddy. Go back to bed." He nodded without hesitation, trusting me in the way a son should trust his father. Because that's what a real man does. He shields his family, even from those meant to protect them. The second he disappeared up the stairs, I turned sharply, stalking into the kitchen. I reached for a glass, gripping it too tightly. The shatter was sharp, jagged shards scattering across the counter. A sliver of glass sliced into my palm, but I barely noticed. I needed to act. Grabbing my phone, I dialed a number I hadn't called in years. The groggy voice on the other end answered. "Yeah?" "It's me," I said, my voice steady, controlled. "I need you to take care of something." A pause, then a single response. "Name it." I ended the call. Delilah had no idea, but by the time the sun rose, her world would be unrecognizable. I would ensure she felt every ounce of the betrayal she had inflicted upon me. Delilah thrived on attention. She fed off admiration, addicted to the knowledge that she was desired. It was never truly about love. It was about control. I see it clearly now. In the beginning, I had been enough. More than enough. I gave her security, a future, a life that others would envy. But she wasn't built for commitment. She lacked discipline, loyalty, the strength to weather the hard times instead of running. She used my long work hours, the business trips, as justifications. In her mind, I was the problem. She felt unseen, unappreciated. But instead of confronting me, Instead of treating me as her equal, her partner, she chose the coward's path. It began with subtle things, offhand remarks, lingering glances, playful smiles. Then came the late meetings, the sudden fitness obsession, the wardrobe changes, the extra care in her appearance. She thought I was blind. She assumed I was too preoccupied, too trusting, too weak to notice. But the truth had been unraveling for months. The videos, the medical reports, those were just the final, irrefutable proof. This wasn't a single mistake. It wasn't a moment of weakness. It had been going on for years. And the worst part? She felt no guilt. That night, after making my call, I sat in the living room and waited. The fire of anger had burned out, leaving something colder, sharper. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about justice. At dawn, she descended the stairs, rubbing sleep from her eyes. One of my shirts draped loosely over her frame, the same body that had lain beneath another man just days ago. "Morning, baby," she murmured, stretching. "Did you sleep down here?" I didn't answer, just watched her. Something in my expression must have unsettled her because her smile faltered. "What's wrong?" I slid my phone across the table. The screen was already open, to the videos, her videos. She picked it up, confusion knitting her brows, until the realization hit. The color drained from her face. I let her watch. Let her see herself through my eyes. A liar, a fraud, a disgrace. By the time she looked up, her hands were trembling. Where did you get this?" My voice was calm, unwavering. "Does it matter?" Her lips parted, but no words came. She understood. No excuses, no fake apologies, no manipulation would save her now. I leaned forward, resting my forearms on my knees. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, voice even, resolute. "You're going to pack a bag. You're going to walk out that door. And you are never coming back." Her eyes widened. "Wait, we need to talk about this." A dry laugh escaped me. "Talk? Now you want to talk?" Her gaze darted toward the staircase, toward the bedrooms where our children slept. Nolan and Flora. "Stay with me," I cut in, my tone like iron. "You don't deserve them." Her mouth opened, but I was done listening. The woman standing before me wasn't the one I had married. And the life she had shattered? That was hers to mourn. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "You don't get to decide that." I tilted my head, a slow smirk forming. "Oh, but I do. Or better yet, let's put it in a judge's hands. See what they think about a mother who jumps from one stranger's bed to another and brings home a death sentence." Her breath hitched, a quiet, sharp intake. There it was, the killing blow. She knew I had her trapped. Straightening, I towered over her. "You want to hear the worst part?" I leaned in, my voice barely above a whisper, cold as steel. "The men you threw yourself at? They never wanted you. You were a distraction, a momentary thrill. And now? Now you're nothing more than a broken thing they left behind." Her hand flew before she could stop herself, striking my face. I barely felt it. Her fingers trembled violently. I made a mistake," she choked out, her voice brittle. "I wasn't thinking." "No," I interrupted, stepping in, my voice ablade. "You were thinking. You knew exactly what you were doing. And you still chose this, chose them, over me, over our children, over the life we built together." I took a step back, watching as the weight of her actions crushed her. "You dug this grave, Delilah. Now lie in it." Desperation flared in her eyes. "Please, we can fix this, right? We can fix it." I said nothing. I walked past her, climbed the stairs, and disappeared into our bedroom. By the time I came back down, she was gone. But this wasn't over, not even close. Her departure didn't bring peace. No satisfaction, no closure, just a hollow void where my family used to be. Because this wasn't just about her anymore. This was about my children, Nolan and Flora, innocent, trusting, mine. And they had no idea that the woman they called mom had betrayed them, had betrayed us all. And I wasn't about to let her drag them down with her. She wanted to play dirty. I was going to raze her entire world to the ground. The first strike. The morning after she left, I wasted no time. I walked straight into my lawyer's office. He was a shark in an expensive suit, calculating, ruthless, and exactly the weapon I needed. I handed him the evidence. He skimmed through it, lips curling into a smirk. "This is brutal," he muttered, flipping through the photos, the messages, the test results. "She doesn't stand a chance." "That's the point," I said, my voice steady. "No negotiations, no compromises. I want her left with nothing." He exhaled sharply, amused. "Then let's get started." Her world crumbled in 48 hours. I didn't work in shadows. I wanted her to see every piece fall apart. First, her career. Delilah had spent years climbing the corporate ladder at an elite marketing firm, a place built on prestige and reputation. By noon, an anonymous email landed in HR's inbox. Attached, undeniable proof of what she had done during a company-funded trip. By lunchtime, she was unemployed. Then, I turned to her social life. Our friends thrived on appearances, brunches, PTA meetings, neighborhood barbecues. The moment the right group chat got the evidence, she was exiled. No more invitations, no sympathetic texts, just cold whispers behind her back, the realization sinking in that she had become the villain in her own story. Next, her family. Her mother called me the following day, her voice shaking. Is this real?" "See for yourself," I replied, forwarding the damning proof. She wept, begged me not to take the children from Delilah. "That depends on her," I said coolly. "She has one chance, just one." Then, I delivered the final blow. I didn't want her just gone. I wanted her erased from our lives. But I wasn't about to use threats. No, I would do it the right way, the legal way, the permanent way, with a smile. When Delilah finally worked up the nerve to call me, she was already drowning. I answered on the third ring. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice calm, measured. Hers was wrecked. You destroyed me." "No," I corrected, unshaken. "You destroyed yourself. I just made sure everyone saw." A shaky breath. "I lost my job, my friends. You lost your family." Silence. Then, barely a whisper, "Please, let me see the kids." I let the silence stretch, let the weight of it sink in. Then, with finality, I gave her the irreversible answer. "You'll see them," I murmured, "when the court says you can." Then I hung up. She had buried herself. Now, she could rot. The collapse of Delilah. Delilah had lived under the illusion that she was untouchable, that she could balance a reckless double life while keeping up the facade of the devoted wife and mother. But deception is always one misstep away from collapse. And I wasn't just tearing down her house of lies, I was ensuring she'd never crawl out from under its ruins. The custody war. She fought back. Of course she did. A week after I cut her off, she arrived at my lawyer's office with a fresh-faced attorney, a rookie, barely out of law school, oblivious to the battlefield he had stepped onto. The meeting lasted 15 minutes. Her lawyer droned on about fair resolutions and co-parenting. We weren't here to play fair. And Delilah? She was about to learn the meaning of absolute devastation. My attorney, a relentless force in the courtroom, pushed a folder across the sleek, polished table. Inside lay a collection of damning evidence, lab results, surveillance footage, financial records. I remember the exact moment Delilah's face drained of color, her gaze locking onto the STD report as if staring at her own execution. Her throat worked in a desperate swallow, eyes darting from the incriminating document to her lawyer in silent panic. "What? What is this?" she whispered, voice barely holding together. I leaned back, feigning indifference. "You tell me." Her lawyer leaned in immediately, murmuring frantic advice, but I barely registered it. Negotiation wasn't on my agenda. "Here's how this goes," I stated, my voice calm yet absolute. You sign over full custody, or we fight this in court. Her entire body tensed, hands balling into fists. You can't do this. I leaned forward, locking my gaze onto hers. I already have. Right there, in front of everyone, she crumbled. Her composure shattered, tears spilling as she choked out desperate pleas. Please, just let me see them. You will, I allowed, my voice devoid of sympathy. When the court permits it. Checkmate. By the time the meeting ended, the deal was in writing. Full custody in my name, no overnight visits, no unsupervised time with the kids. Any contact would be contingent on her proving she was clean. But we both knew that was never going to happen. The damage she had done was irreversible. Her downfall was swift and merciless. The same PTA mothers who once exchanged gossip with her now avoided her gaze. Invitations to school functions disappeared. Her name became synonymous with disgrace, whispered among those who once welcomed her. Then came the final, crushing blow, her own family. Even her mother called me, voice thick with tears, pleading on her behalf. She's at rock bottom, her mother wept. She's lost everything. Please, she needs help. She should have thought of that before she betrayed her family. I responded coldly, ending the call without hesitation. Sympathy wasn't in my repertoire, not for her. And when she believed she had nothing left to lose, reality delivered its cruelest punishment. The men for whom she had gambled everything? Gone. Vanished the moment her secret became public knowledge. Some had wives, others had reputations to protect, and none wanted to inherit the baggage she carried. She tried reaching out, begging for comfort. I knew because I saw the messages. She never realized I still had access to her phone. The last time I saw her was 3 months after she walked out. She appeared on my doorstep, gaunt and exhausted, shadows etched beneath her lifeless eyes. I didn't invite her in. Instead, I stepped outside, arms crossed. What do you want? My voice was as cold as the night air. For a moment, she just stared, raw regret tightening her features. Then, in a broken whisper, I miss them. I didn't waver. You should have thought of that before you threw it all away. She flinched as though struck. I made a mistake, okay? But you took everything from me. I let out a bitter laugh, empty of amusement. I didn't take anything. You handed it over. She stood there, waiting for some glimmer of mercy. But I had none left to give. So I turned away, stepped inside, and shut the door behind me, leaving her alone with the ruins she had built. Some people dig their own graves. I merely provided the shovel. Life went on. The seasons changed. My world thrived while hers continued to collapse. She lost the house, the car, the last remnants of her dignity. She drifted through rundown apartments, struggled to hold jobs, and eventually, even her own mother stopped answering her calls. Meanwhile, the kids flourished. Nolan made the basketball team. Flora started piano lessons. We rebuilt something stronger, something better, without her. To them, she was a ghost, a distant echo of a name that no longer mattered. Then came the final message. Late one night, long after I assumed she had disappeared from my life for good, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. But the moment I read the text, I knew. Delilah. I need to see you. Please. One last time. I almost ignored it, almost erased it without a second thought. But something, curiosity perhaps, or the simple need to witness how far she had fallen, made me reply. Why? Her answer arrived within seconds. I'm leaving town. I just need to talk, face to face. I hesitated, then typed, fine, 1 hour, 9th Street Diner. I wasn't worried. She was broken. And me? I had already won. When I arrived, she was already there, hunched in a corner booth, a mere shadow of the woman I once knew. Her once flawless hair hung in tangled strands. Dark smudges of old makeup clung to hollow eyes. Her hands trembled around a lukewarm coffee cup. She lifted her gaze as I stopped at the table, arms crossed, my expression unreadable. "You said you wanted to talk," I said, voice devoid of warmth. "So talk." She took a shaky breath. "I'm leaving. For good." I sank into the chair across from her, my eyes locked onto hers, unyielding, assessing, like a predator sizing up prey too weak to run. "Where?" My voice was steady, devoid of emotion. She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. Her lips tightened into a thin line. Somewhere else, far from here. She was fleeing again. But this time there were no excuses, no desperate attempts to justify herself. No fight left in her at all. "There's nothing for me here anymore." The words drifted out, quiet and final, like a truth she had only just accepted herself. I said nothing. I let the silence press down between us. She took a deep breath, hands trembling slightly as she released it. "I deserve it," she admitted, her voice stripped bare. "All of it. Everything that happened. I see that now." For the first time, she wasn't shifting blame. Not onto me, not onto the pressure, not onto the emptiness she once claimed had consumed her. She was finally facing what she had done. And yet, I felt nothing. No triumph, no pity. Just an unshakable, frozen detachment. She hesitated, then reached into her pocket. Her fingers curled around something small before she set it gently on the table. A worn photograph, its edges frayed with age and neglect. Nolan and Flora stared up at me from the faded image. "I don't expect forgiveness." Her voice barely carried across the space between us. I just want them to know I love them. That's all." I picked up the photo, studied it for a moment, then shifted my gaze back to her. I still said nothing. Because she didn't deserve that. Not after everything. Not after she left them behind. Not after she reduced our lives to nothing but ash. She let out a quiet, exhausted sigh, nodding slightly as if she had already braced herself for my silence. Then, without another word, she rose to her feet. "Goodbye, Randy." I didn't reply. I only watched as she turned and walked away, her figure growing smaller with every step, until she disappeared from my life for good. I remained where I was, staring at the empty chair she had left behind. And in that stillness, something unexpected settled over me. The anger was gone. The bitterness had drained away. The past no longer held me captive. I was free. Some betrayals can never be undone. Some people can never be redeemed. And sometimes, the most powerful revenge isn't retribution at all. It's letting go. My friend, and this is the end of the story. If you liked this story, then put your royal like and subscribe to the channel. May the force be with you.